Imagine this. You're 10 years old in the world of Pokemon, just setting out on your journey. You see this cute little balloon Pokemon, and you take its hand. What could possibly go wrong? Well, next thing you know, you're gone, never to be seen again. Fun, right? Well, that's how dangerous some Pokemon can be. But who do you think the most dangerous out of all 1,000 plus Pokemon are? Because I got to thinking about this not too long ago, which led me down a rabbit hole of Pokédex entries, and I compiled a list of 10 Pokemon that I think would be the most dangerous and terrifying if they lived in our world. If I don't mention one that you think of, please let me know. Now let's start with some honorable mentions first. I think it's safe to say that all legendaries could be on this list, whether it's a Veltal who, when his life comes to an end, absorbs the life energy of every living thing and turns into a cocoon, or maybe Entei who causes volcanoes to erupt whenever it barks, even Guzzlord who has gobbled up mountains and swallowed whole buildings. Or maybe any of the time travelers like Dialga or Celebi, or maybe the ruler of space, Palkia, and let's not forget about the Pokegod himself, Arceus. I think it's safe to say that all legendaries, mythicals, and ultra beasts, they're all pretty terrifying, so I'm going to exclude them from the actual list here. And a whole other category of terrifying Pokemon is practically every single ghost type who love to take humans for fun and suck their life force. You know, the good old stuff. This would include, but's not limited to, the Litwick line, Honedge, Frostlass, Sinistra, and Drifloon like I had mentioned earlier. There are really so many of them, I can't even talk about them all right now. And our last honorable mentions here will be Malamar and Aegislash. These two both seem to use hypnotic powers to control others. Malamar's entries say, it wields the most compelling hypnotic powers of any Pokemon, and it forces others to do whatever it wants. Where Aegislash's says, generations of kings were attended by these Pokemon, which use their spectral powers to manipulate and control people and Pokemon. Now, don't get me wrong here. Being controlled could be an absolute nightmare, but let's be honest, in the state of this world, who isn't already kind of being controlled by something? I know that if I were being controlled by, say, Perrin or Cynthia, I wouldn't mind. Anyways, let's get to the actual list. At number 10, let's start with everybody's favorite sleepy boy, Snorlax. His Legends Arceus entry says, this glutton appears in villages without warning and devours the entirety of their rice granaries. Such occurrences have long been counted among the gravest of disasters. Now, this might not seem like such a big deal until you realize how much damage he might actually be able to cause to towns and cities, or even worse if he got to like a farmer's crops or something like that. It would cause supply chain issues for sure, and who knows what ramifications that could cause. I know I certainly would not want to find out. At number 9, we have Dusclops. Wow, another ghost type. Who would have thought? But he's the only one, I promise. His Ruby entry actually states that his body is like a black hole. This Pokemon will absorb anything into his body, but nothing will ever come back out. Meaning that if you get near Dusclops, he could just absorb your soul on a whim, and that's all she wrote. Now, the reason that Snorlax and Dusclops are so low on this list is not because they're not scary, it's just that everything else can do a lot more damage and is also pretty terrifying. Such as our number 8, Blastoise, where his silver entry states, the rocket cannons on its shell fire jets of water capable of punching holes through thick steel. Imagine if shot of water so strong it could just go through an entire building. No one survives a shot from this big turtle. And I would imagine a single shot that goes through more than just a couple people at once. See what I mean when the other two weren't as scary? Blastoise could just shoot down a bunch of people. Just like number 7, Magmortar, where his diamond entry states, it blasts fireballs of over 3,600 degrees Fahrenheit from the end of its arms. Very similar to Blastoise, but with raging hot fire. And just in case you don't actually know how hot that is, to put it in perspective, the surface of the sun burns at about 10,000 degrees Fahrenheit. So at 3,600 degrees, every metal on the planet would melt except for 2, tantalum and tungsten. If you were anywhere close to that blast, I'd say your fire would burn out. Ha, get it? Fire? No, but seriously, like, you would be absolutely dead. Number 6, Exploud. Its Ruby entry states, Exploud triggers earthquakes with the tremors it creates by bellowing. Think about this for a second. If this Pokemon wanted to, he could just shout non-stop and cause earthquake after earthquake after earthquake. Now, the worst earthquake within the last 30 years had roughly 316,000 casualties. So imagine if Exploud just felt like it. He could do some serious damage, not only to living beings, but probably the Earth's surface as well. Number 5 on our list could actually cause even more devastation than Exploud, and that would be Tyranitar. His X entry states, in just one of its mighty hands, it has the power to make the ground shake and mountains crumble. Being able to make a mountain crumble with one hand is freaking insane. He's basically a buffed Exploud without the annoying yelling. And let's put this in perspective real quick. A mountain, according to most geologists, is about 1,000 feet or more above its surrounding area. Now imagine a Tyranitar just using one hand and making an entire mountain crumble. That's not too scary, right? Well, honestly, it's not as terrifying as our number 4 Pokemon here, Hatterene. Hatterene's sword entry says, this Pokemon can read the emotions of creatures over 30 miles away. The minute it senses hostility, it goes down the attack. Are you kidding me? Can you imagine how terrifying that would be? Imagine you or someone around you just had one bad thought. This thing is coming at you full speed from possibly 30 miles away. Just the thought of that is terrifying. And that's not all, because according to its Scarlet entry, Hatterene knocks out those who intrude its home forest by blasting them with a beam, slashing them with the claws, you know, the typical stuff. So, not only is it if you have bad intentions, it's also just if you're near its house. You're gone. You're toast. And Hatterene will not be buttering you. How unfortunate. Now let's move on here to number 3, and let's do a bit of a guessing game here. He can be found on a lake, he's full of rage, and he can be very red. Got it yet? It's Gyarados. Gyarados is literally known as the atrocious Pokemon. Literally, its definition. And its Sapphire entry states, once Gyarados goes on a rampage, its ferociously violent blood doesn't calm until it has burned everything down. There are records of this Pokemon's rampages lasting a whole month. And its original entry in Red and Blue says, it's capable of destroying entire cities in a rage. Gyarados literally just has the deadliest temper tantrum ever. It's like if you took away a toddler's favorite toy, but instead of a toddler, it was a giant water, snake, dragon creature thing. And it lasts a whole freaking month? I can't stand when a tantrum lasts longer than a couple minutes, not to mention the whole, burn everything down bit. Safe to say though, if you're anywhere close to a pissed off Gyarados, you better start praying to Arceus. Or, just have like a Pikachu or something with you. So what's more terrifying than Gyarados? Well, at number 2, we have the absolutely scary, terrifying, spine-tingling, causing Gardevoir. Okay, yeah, I'm just kidding. It's not really that scary. Unless you look up Rule 34 about it, but please don't do that. I'm begging. Please. Jokes aside, Gardevoir ranks at number 2 for a very good reason. Its Sapphire entry states that to protect its trainer, it will expand all its psychic power to create a small black hole. Which, if I remember correctly, was part of the plot to the new Mystery Dungeon game? I don't know. But the ability to create a fucking black hole is insanity. I'm pretty sure everything would just start getting sucked in until there's like nothing left, or until Gardevoir's trainer's alright. Luckily, if it's the latter, we can assume Gardevoir has the ability to stop the black hole whenever it wants, which is the main reason she's going to be at number 2 instead of number 1. But just imagine for a second. You make one wrong joke about a guy, and his Pokemon creates a freaking black hole as a punishment. Talk about a joke falling flat. Get it? Because I think black holes could be flat. I feel like Gardevoirs would not like me. Oh well. That's why they're at number 2. Finally, number 1. We made it. Well, probably not if we had to make it through any of the aforementioned Pokemon, but here we are regardless. The absolute worst and deadliest Pokemon to be in real life. Magcargo. Now I know what you're thinking. What? Magcargo? That dumbass snail? Yeah, the dumbass snail, whose Sapphire entry explains that its body temperature is roughly 18,000 degrees Fahrenheit. Remember when I said the surface of the sun was about 10,000 degrees? Yeah, so Magcargo just existing would cause an immense threat to anything around it, but my guess is that anything that hot will also start messing with the atmosphere, and the repercussions probably would mean the end of the world as we know it. All thanks to a dumbass snail. Just existing. It has no malicious intent or anything like some of the other Pokemon on this list. The dude is just vibing, and it's just causing a cataclysm casually. How fun. But hey, at least it's quad weak to water and ground, so all you really need to stay alive is a Wooper. Woo! If you made it this far, I appreciate you making it through all the crappy jokes. But if you liked any part of this, please consider subscribing. Thank you, and have a great one.